Hey everyone. So I wanted to stop in here and give you a quick little mini lecture on research methods because that can be a lot of information to take in, and I know that some of you are a little confused because there is a lot to take in this first part of the course. So the first way to break up information on methodology is quantitative versus qualitative. Now, quantitative is just stuff that you can count. So things like age or income or how many cars you have, right? Those are all things that you can count. Now, qualitative, that is stuff that you have to describe. So if you wanted to say poverty, you could, in quantitative data, think of it in terms of, well, how much money did somebody make last year? Whereas if you wanted to ask, what does poverty look like in, say, the mean streets of Henderson? You might go and visit a site and start taking notes and start seeing things like, well, okay, so there are people who live in their cars, or maybe people have clothes that are out of fashion. So those kinds of details are usually the things that qualitative methods are better at capturing. Now, if you look at the graphic that I uploaded to the week 3 module called Wallace's Wheel, this is a simplified version of something called Wallace's Wheel of Science, and it's meant to show you that research is cyclical and iterative. And that means that you can enter in at any stage, right? And whether you are looking to do inductive or deductive research, you can continue on and you can keep on going. So what does that mean? So all research basically starts in the library, right? You're going to read about things that you want to learn more about, right? You're going to read what other people have done. And when you're doing deductive reasoning, you take theories, and based on what you've read, you come up with a guess, a testable proposition. That means things can go one way or the other, right? And that's called a hypothesis. So you come up with a hypothesis, which is a testable guess, and then you go through your research method and you test to see whether or not the hypothesis gets supported by your empirical evidence or not supported. And anytime we say empirical, we really just mean anything that you can observe with the 5 senses, right? So then, if you are doing inductive research, you would go out into the field, right? But you've still read about what you want to know more about, right? You're going to go out into the field, you're going to take notes, and you're going to start gathering all of these rich notes that you're typing up and stuff, and you're going to start noticing patterns. And you're going to read more about those patterns. And then you're going to take those patterns and try and tie them in with research that other people have already done and try to generalize from those patterns. So you might say, like, go out and you might want to find out what kinds of meanings people attribute to their orders at Starbucks. So you're going to go and you're going to hang out at a Starbucks, you're going to take all these notes, you're going to ask people, why they order what they do, you're going to ask them about, things that they do while they're, enjoying these drinks, and you're going to notice patterns, like maybe some people are using just the caffeine because they need to study, and you're going to say, well, some people actually associate certain flavors with maybe being on a date or being with friends. So that's inductive research where you're noticing patterns in the data, and then you're going to try and generalize from them. Now, a variable is just anything that varies. It's that simple. And when you're thinking about independent variables and dependent variables, the easiest way to remember it is that the independent variable causes the dependent variable. IV causes DV. Okay? Now, the idea of reliability is just, can we expect similar results if we take your study and we try to do it ourselves, right? So if a study is well designed, we should be able to expect similar results each time we do it. If we do reproduce a study and we get wildly different results, then something's wrong. So we say it has low reliability. Now, validity means, does it measure what we say it's going to measure? And that's really, really important. Say we want to measure poverty, and we look at household income, right? Does that measure poverty? Well, to a certain extent, because we're looking at how much money a particular household takes in. But what if you're not part of a household? What if for instance, you have grandparents or great-grandparents living with you and they don't have much of an income? Does that affect the poverty of your household? Yeah. So we have to look at other ways to try and increase that validity. Freakonomics is one of those things. I don't know if any of you have read it or heard any of the podcasts, but they tend to look at things, and sometimes I read it and I listen to it on the radio, and I'm like, I really don't know if that actually measures what you say it's measuring. And that is an error in validity. So let's talk about basic kinds of research methods. One of them is the survey. You hand out pieces of paper, or you might send people to a web link. A lot of you still haven't filled out the survey that's associated with your textbook, but that's an example. A lot of times it's multiple choice, and that, you're counting up how many people say certain things, right? So that is quantitative data. Now, you're trying to make generalizations about a particular population, which is a group of people, but you know that you can't, for instance, say, you can't ask the same question to, say, all queer people in Las Vegas or all black people in Las Vegas, because you don't have the time and the resources to do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a sample that's a smaller number of people that has the same characteristics as the larger population. That's called taking a sample or sampling. So that is typically the big thing that we think of when we think of quantitative methodology. When we think of qualitative methodology, we're often talking about field work, right? Going into the field. And we start taking qualitative notes. We might participate in activities. We will observe people. When you combine those two as in the same person, that's participant observation. That's generally what we call ethnography. Ethnography is this whole genre of research where people write about these experiences that they have to be participating in, so that they can understand what it's like to be part of a population that doesn't usually get written about. So interviews, participant observation, ethnography, right? Qualitative. Now, the one that kind of straddles the line is the content analysis, which your book says is part of a document analysis. And the reason why it straddles the line is because usually we're taking things like how much time a woman appears on screen in a movie or a set of movies, right? So we're counting those things, and that's quantitative. But at some point, we have to decide what qualifies as a woman. Does a trans person qualify as a woman? What about if somebody is very young? Does that qualify as a woman? So we have to make those judgment calls when we are deciding the criteria for what we're counting, and that is what makes it qualitative. So content analysis, yes, kind of straddles the line between the two. Now, so if you might have started to pick up on this, qualitative and quantitative methods answer different kinds of questions better. If you want to find out more about poverty in Las Vegas, you can talk about what household incomes look like. If you want to find out about what poverty means to people experiencing it, yeah, you're going to want to talk to them, and you're going to want to ask them questions and find out more about what their lives really feel like. And so often, one of the things that's been really sort of a buzzword since the 90s has been mixed methods. And that is when you keep on going through that cycle of research with both quantitative things to really show people in using hard data and hard numbers what certain things are like, and then you'll use qualitative data to give sort of a human picture to what those numbers mean to people. All right, so that is basically the big gist of most of the terms that you should be looking at in the text. So I hope that helps you out. Let me know if you have any questions, and don't forget to participate in the discussion.